We all think we know the story of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, right? It's a legend that's basically carved in stone. But what if I told you that the story we've all been told, well, it's not the real story, and that the real story is so much more complicated and honestly, way more interesting?
You've heard this line before. Come back with your shield or on it. It perfectly captures that whole Spartan warrior thing, doesn't it? A culture where dying in battle with the absolute greatest honor. It's this powerful, powerful image of just unbreakable will and heroic sacrifice.
But what if that entire image is just a carefully built myth? What if the real reason the Greeks lost that battle has been buried for more than 2,000 years?
Okay, so first, let's just do a quick recap of the Hollywood version of the story. You know the one. You've got the incredible King Leonidas and his 300 elite Spartan warriors making this epic last stand in a tiny pass against, like, the biggest army the world had ever seen.
I mean, it's the perfect underdog story. For days, they hold this pass, just wrecking the Persian invaders. And their stand only ends because some local guy, Ephialtes, betrays them and shows the Persians a secret mountain path. It's a simple, heroic tale. And it's almost completely wrong.
All right, so now let's start to pull at the threads of this legend. And we're going to start with two of its main pillars, the idea of the clueless Persians and the invincible Spartans.
You know, the idea that the massive, sophisticated Persian Empire would just blindly throw wave after wave of soldiers into this meat grinder of a pass, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Historical records show the Persian army got there a full week before the battle even started. They weren't just hanging around. They were scouting, they were planning, and they were using their local Greek allies to map out the terrain. They almost certainly knew about that secret path long before this Ephialtes guy supposedly spilled the beans.
And what about the Spartans themselves? We think of them as these ultimate warriors born and bred for battle. But here's the thing. Before this battle, that just wasn't their reputation. An oracle at the time was asked to name the best of the Greeks, and the answer was a Thessalian horse, a Spartan woman, and the warriors of Argos. Not a single Spartan man in the list? The whole Spartan military legend that we know today, it wasn't the cause of Thermopylae, it was the result of.
So this brings us to the real turning point of the battle. If the Persians probably already knew about the path, how did they get past the soldiers who were supposed to be guarding it? Because believe me, that path was anything but unguarded.
Yeah, not even close. It was held by a force of 1,000 soldiers from the Greek state of Phocis. 1,000 experienced fighters guarding this crucial mountain trail. So, what happened to them?
Well, the official story we get from this historian Herodotus is strange. He claims these 1,000 soldiers didn't even post any guards, that they were caught completely by surprise. And then, after just a single volley of arrows, they just ran away. They retreated up to a hilltop, thinking the Persians were there to attack them, and then just watched as the elite Persian immortals marched right past them to surround Leonidas.
And that's the problem, right? It just doesn't make any sense. These were experienced mountain fighters. They had the single most important job in the entire Greek defense. The idea that they would panic and run away that easily, it just doesn't add up.
So if it wasn't incompetence, what was it? Now this is where the new theory gets really, really interesting. What if it wasn't a failure at all? What if it was a deliberate, calculated betrayal?
See, in the ancient Greek world, siding with the Persians was a common political move. They even had a name for it, metism, and a lot of Greek city-states did it. The question is, did the Phocian guards on that path cut a deal with the enemy?
Let's just look at the evidence. We know the Phocians were skilled mountain fighters, not rookies. We know they didn't even try to counterattack the Persians, who would have been total sitting ducks on that narrow path. And then you have two absolute bombshells. First, the incredibly rich and powerful Oracle of Delphi, which was located in Phocis, was mysteriously spared by the Persian army. And second, a year later, exactly 1,000 Phocian troops were recorded fighting for the Persians.
And here's the key, the missing piece of the puzzle. Phocis was a divided state. One part of it resisted Persia, and their lands were burned to the ground for it. But another faction, the super-powerful priests of Delphi, had a history of siding with foreign powers to protect their own interests. The theory is that those 1,000 guards on the path were from Delphi. They didn't run away. They made a deal. They let the Persians pass, and in exchange, Delphi was kept safe and secure.
So when you put all of this together, it completely changes how we see the battle. It's no longer this simple story of heroes and a lone traitor. It's a complex game of strategy, politics, and cold, hard self-preservation. This table really lays it all out.
The Persians weren't just using brute force. They were brilliant strategists who exploited the divisions within the Greek alliance. Leonidas wasn't betrayed by one guy. He was outmaneuvered by an entire political faction. And his heroic last stand? It was a tactical disaster that got spun into one of the greatest propaganda victories in history.
Which brings us to the final, huge question. If this is the real story, why do we all still believe the myth? Well, the answer lies in the incredible power of what scholars call the Spartan mirage.
See, the myth of the Spartan super soldier didn't just appear overnight. It was born at Thermopylae and then carefully built up by the Spartans themselves. For the next 150 years, their discipline and tactics made them pretty much unbeatable, which only cemented the legend. But the most extreme, hardcore stories about them, they were written by Roman authors centuries later, long after Sparta's power had totally faded. The myth had become way more powerful than the reality ever was.
So, what's the bottom line? The story of the 300 isn't just history. It is, quite possibly, the most successful and longest-lasting piece of propaganda ever created. It took a crushing military defeat, one that happened because of political backstabbing, and turned it into this eternal symbol of courage against impossible odds.
The story of Thermopylae is a powerful reminder that history is written by the victors, and sometimes by the losers who are just smart enough to control the story. It really forces us to ask, what other stories have we been told? What other heroes do we look up to that are nothing more than a carefully constructed mirage?